All set? Sandy Hill, please. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for bearing with us. As usual, myself apologizing, the committee has run a little over in our conferencing, but we'll begin. First off, may I ask if you have cell phones or other electronic devices, would you please turn them to vibrate or turn them off as a courtesy to everyone in the room. Adequate notice of this March the 26th, 2015 meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting written notice and agenda of the meeting on the bulletin board in the Municipal Building, 1000 Route 10, Township of Hanover, and by hand delivering, mailing, and faxing such notice and agenda to the following newspapers: Hanover, Morris County's Daily Record, the Star Ledger, Hanover Eagle, and by filing same with the Township Clerk. I have a roll call, please.
Committeeman Gallagher.
Here.
Committeeman Faramasca.
Here.
Committeeman Bruno.
Here.
Committeeman Capola.
Here.
And Mayor Franciola.
Here.
5 members in attendance, sir.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, those that can, would you please join me in a pledge allegiance to our flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to open the meeting to the public. We have, as a matter of procedure, most are here tonight on ordinance number 8-15, and we want to hear everyone on 8-15. We're going to open the meeting as we do, part of the Open Public Meetings Act right now, but if you wish to speak to that particular ordinance, there'll be an opportunity when we motion to introduce that ordinance. We'll have the floor open, and you can comment on that ordinance specifically. So if there are members of the public, and before I ask to open, that would like to comment on anything other than that ordinance at this time, motion to open the floor. So moved. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to address the committee on matters other than on the agenda here, please do so from the podium, giving us your name and address for the record. Welcome home, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You don't look that tan.
Well, takes me a little longer to get to the beach than it used to.
But then you should be getting tan on the way, but go ahead. How you doing?
Anyway, I'm going to make this very brief because I know a number of people are here for 8:15.
Yes,
but I just want to, no pun intended, talk about a crossroads that the Township Committee is going to be facing vis-a-vis Parsippany Road and what's that other road? Whippany Road.
Yeah.
I've noticed that there's definitely progress going along. My question and my opportunity for you gentlemen to consider. It's my understanding MetLife its way, the proposed driveway is going to accommodate MetLife as well as Bayer. My question to you for foreseeable future, and I'm going to keep this very brief, there are still approximately 3 projects that may ensue on the South Campus. Is it possible, because I know at one meeting we both were at, Bayer was adamant about not opening up to Algonquin. Is there any possibility that in negotiations for the following buildings that are going up, we may be able to insist before anything else happens, we have a connection to Algonquin? I leave that with you just as a question.
The Algonquin, for the general public's understanding, what Mr. Mahalko is talking about is Bayer Boulevard, which is the new road that presently a driveway, which will now become Bayer Boulevard at the traffic light, the one traffic light, which will be at the corners of Whippany Road and Parsippany Road by the Quick Check. We're going to abandon that second driveway where that second light is. And once we abandon that, all that property from that driveway through will become part of what's known as the South Campus. MetLife is taking part of that. We're not pleased with the traffic patterns from MetLife, and we've accepted additional lane widenings down to Route 10 on a portion of MetLife, and we've accepted some other exiting, what should I call it, circulation patterns that their engineers showed our engineers and worked out with the county. But in the end, what Mr. Mahalko is talking about, what the Township Committee is talking about, is that even though that intersection is going to be improved with the one traffic light, Bayer Boulevard, imagine Bayer Boulevard going into the Bayer buildings, right? And imagine that road, which parallels Route 10, which it does, continuing all the way down toward East Hanover, toward behind P.C. Richards, and then bridging, crossing over the Whippany River, and then connecting to what is known as a paper street right now, because we don't have it on the thing, the Algonquin Parkway. Presently, that's a stub in there, there's a turning circle in there by P.C. Richards. That would allow traffic from Bayer and from the MetLife people to exit east without ever getting on Route 10 in Hanover, and Mayor Panullo gets all of us, and hoorah. At the same time, it would be a great reliever, because we know we're getting all the traffic from his Novartis, 6,700 employees that get on our Route 10 about 5 o'clock to come this way. So yes, we're trying to pursue that. It's not a dead issue with Bayer. Joe, to bring you up to date, I won't belabor it, Bayer is working with 67 Whippany and working with MetLife, and they're packaging this in a way, it's kind of unfair to say to Bayer, you're going to take 100% of the cost. And by the way, none of this cost is going to be borne by the Township of Hanover, by the taxpayers of this township, because the impact being caused by any of this development is going to be borne by those that create the impact. That'll be MetLife, 67 Whippany LLC, and Bayer Corporation. Bayer's willing to build an elevated highway, willing to build the bridge in concert with these other users. Are there issues? Yes. Do we have to cross some sensitive lands? Yes. We're working with the DEP. There will be applications made not only before them, but from the New Jersey Land Trust. It's not a simple process, and it's not a short process. If we could facilitate those approvals, then I can almost guarantee you Bayer would want to go ahead on the connection. So that's where we are, so that everybody understands. But all that construction that you see out front there right now is to abandon the one driveway, get rid of the one traffic light, the second traffic light, have all the traffic controlled by the one light and the one intersection. That's where we are. Michael, how you doing?
Hi, Michael Mahalko, 7 Nye Avenue, Hanover Township. Along the same vein, that intersection that they're working on, is there a time frame for that? A resident had asked me that it will be worked on and/or complete, and their real concern was, will it affect the Memorial Day Parade?
Thank you. Is there any comment that I have on?
Jerry.
Jerry?
I think the estimated time frame is for construction completion is about 6 months.
They're on a real fast track.
Yeah, so it's going to affect it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that's good news, bad news.
Yeah.
I mean, we're thrilled. We're thrilled over the quality of rateable that they are, and we certainly want them as a neighbor on that track. I think in the pecking order, like your dad said, the next thing we'll be looking for
Was
is...
the question, are we going to have the parade?
It's gonna continue on
The
the
intention
same
is to have the parade, to
Yeah,
answer your
it's gonna be
question.
the same route.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know if the construction would affect the route.
It'll be open for traffic, and we intend to have the parade.
Anyone else like to be heard at this time?
I have Joe's permission to do this.
Oh, good.
Jim Farr, Monroe area, Whippany section of Township of Hanover. At the Monroe area, I told him, I'm not trying to up.
You did that right.
Yes, I hope I did. I lived there for more than a day. My subject is the traffic light, Whippany Road and Park Avenue. Since I'm one of the motorists that uses that, a number of years ago, they put in a left-hand turn lane for Whippany Road, and it's also a designated left-hand lane for Park Avenue. Park Avenue looks like it's working fine, because the delayed lights, green arrow, etc. Whippany Road only has a green light, and they both activate at the same time. So if you're out there during a regular commuting hour, which happens to be 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 at night, a motorist cannot make the left-hand turn because of the amount of traffic.
Of the oncoming traffic, yeah.
Yeah, so that left lane has no signal to be
Yeah.
able to make the left turn. Not like a delayed green or whatever, right? So if somebody could look at that and maybe change that, that might reduce some of the accidents that occur
No,
at that
you're
intersection.
bringing up a very good point, and part of the approvals of the MetLife was they need to optimize 11 intersections. That's one of the intersections that they actually have to go through, looking at signalization, how it coordinates with the other lights, but I think you're bringing up a very good point for safety.
Yeah, well, I noticed the other day when I tried to make a left at 5 o'clock, it was impossible. I was out in the middle of the intersection, and the light turned green for Park Avenue, and here I am, you know?
We
So-
have to work with the county on, that's County Road, Whippany
Well,
Road.
yeah, if they do
Yeah.
the same thing, I imagined, I looked at it, I thought about if they do the same thing, let's say that's Jefferson Road or Route 10, where it's a delayed green, you
Yeah,
don't necessarily have to have the green light, but both of them are delayed from one another,
yep.
it would probably resolve the problem. Otherwise, the point is, why do we have that left-hand turn lane?
We don't have to wait on MetLife on that. We could work that out. We could talk to the county immediately to take a look at that.
Well, that was one of the off-site improvements that MetLife agreed to.
That MetLife was gonna enter into?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, that's where we
it.
are.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to be heard at this time? Hearing none, a motion to close this portion of the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On departmental reports, we'll just note for the record that all the department reports are on file in the Business Administrator's office and available for public inspection at any time during normal business hours. We now turn to the agenda with ordinances for public hearing and consideration of adoption. The first is docketed as ordinance number 8-2015, which, if adopted, would amend and supplement Chapter 166 of the Code of the Township, entitled Land Use and Development Legislation, by changing the zone classification of Block 4701, Lot 29, as set forth on the tax map of the township, and also known as 325 Whippany Road, from the R15 zone district to a new R10A zone district, and by amending the development standards in the R10A zone district. We have notification from the Daily Record in terms of an affidavit of publication that the ordinance, the revised zoning map, and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the March 16th issue of the Daily Record. Pursuant to the municipal land use law, all residents residing within 200 feet, within and without the proposed district, were notified by regular mail and certified mail, and the ordinance was filed with the Morris County Planning Board, again in accordance with the municipal land use law, and we have notification that it was so filed and received by the county. Once again, in accordance with the municipal land use law, the ordinance was referred to the Hanover Township Planning Board for referral and recommendation, and it was reviewed by the Planning Board at its March 10th meeting, and the following letter has been submitted to me from the Vice Chair of the Planning Board, J. William Byrne. The letter reads in part as follows: Dear Mr. Giorgio, at its March 10th, 2015 meeting, the Planning Board reviewed and discussed Ordinance 8-15, which had been referred by the Township Committee as required by the Municipal Land Use Law at NJSA 40:55D-26A. Ordinance 8-15 would amend and supplement Chapter 166 of the Code by changing the zone classification of Lot 29 and Block 2701 from its current R15 zone classification to the R10A zone, and would modify the regulations for the R10A zone district. The planning board has determined that ordinance 8-15 is inconsistent with the master plan. The land use element of the master plan recommends the existing R15 zone classification and policies for this property. Generally, this would permit the conventional development of single-family detached homes on 15,000 square foot lots. The master plan also recommends that other uses be permitted, including but not limited to community residences and shelters, houses of worship, schools, parks, and other public uses with appropriate regulations. Ordinance 8-15 would change the classification of the property to the R10A district, which would permit the development of multiple single-family dwellings on a single parcel and at a higher density and with different standards than recommended in the master plan for the R15 zone. They then provide a comparison between the R15 zone, which is in the master plan, as opposed to R10A as proposed by ordinance 8-15. In addition to the above inconsistencies, the R10A zone district does not permit institutional uses as recommended to be permitted in the master plan for the R15 zone district. In reviewing ordinance 8-15, the board offers the following comments. 1, the subject property is located at the intersection of 2 highly traveled roadways. As such, ordinance 8-15 would create opportunities for better control of access and circulation than current regulations. And 2, the subject property is triangular in shape. Due to this shape, a single-family subdivision with an internal street system could result in individual lots facing inward, with the rear of the dwellings and the rear of the yards of the lots facing Park Avenue and Whippany Road, which would provide a less attractive streetscape on these roads than possible with the coordinated development envisioned by ordinance 8-15. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on ordinance 8-15. Very truly yours, J. William Byrne, Vice Chairman, on behalf of the Planning Board. And we'll also note for the record that on March 23rd, a protest petition consisting of 24 residences within and without the lot 29 and block 4701 was filed with me as the Business Administrator Township Clerk. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, may we have a motion to convene the public hearing?
Second.
Mr. Bruno.
Okay,
Second.
Before we open, just as an, I like to provide an overview, and then we will open and hear comments. But everyone has been brought to this room with an interest in this ordinance, and I want you to thoroughly understand not just the ordinance, but I want you to understand what the Township Committee has been examining regarding this particular piece of property, this area, this region, this neighborhood. And Reverend Curry, who appeared about a meeting, several meetings ago, Reverend Curry represents the ownership of the present church property. Can you hear me well in the back, Bob? Can you hear me? Okay. Reverend Curry commented on this property to not only us, but we've had comments before our planning board that he has 2 contracts, potential contracts of sale for this property. One contract certainly is more advantageous for him than the other, and the one contract is for a religious institutional use. The other contract, and we're not going to get into the market values of what he's trying to do, that doesn't concern us, is for a residential use. He made it abundantly clear at that time to us that he is going to accept one or the other of those contracts, and what he was trying to do, and I won't quote him, but he's on the record as saying that he was hoping to do what he felt was the best for Hanover Township in leaving the area. And he felt of the two potential uses that he had, or attractive buyers for his property, that the residential use, those are his comments. Those are not those of the Township Committee, et cetera. And, but I want to leave you on that. So I guess the reason I'm stating that is I want you to know the options before us. The condition presently on that zone is R15, 15,000 square foot single-family homes can remain that way. It will not remain that way. The second option on there is that if it is sold for purposes of a residential builder who is building, in this particular proposal, lot sizes which are under the 10,000 square foot range of size. And finally, his other offer was an institutional use, which is a cultural center for a large religious order. Having said all that, I just want us to know what is before us as we discuss this, so we don't have to reiterate it. Secondly, lastly, finally, I'll open the floor. I'm going to take a play out of Governor's playbook. And we had the pleasure of Governor Christie visiting with us in a town hall meeting this past Tuesday, and he had a great many people want to speak to him. We're going to employ the same playbook. We are going to give each speaker 5 minutes at the podium. You can make statements, comments, etc. Where we can answer your questions, we will attempt to answer your questions. 5 minutes, after which you will not return to the podium until everyone else has had an opportunity to speak. There are enough people in this room that may want to comment. We want to give everybody the opportunity to comment, and that's where we are. Having said that, motion to open.
So moved. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
The floor is open. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do approach the podium, once again, I remind you to give us your name and address for the record. And the floor is open.
Hi, my name's Lucy Laux, and I'm at 25 Knollwood. I'm outside the 200-foot radius.
Would you speak right into that microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Thank
Didn't
you.
know I needed a mic. I have a question on what was read about the houses in this internal road development. Why can't the front yards face Whippany and Park? The internal road accomplishes that's where the garages would be. The garages would be in the back of the house. So when I think you read, the way you read it, it sounded like the backyards would be facing Park Avenue and Whippany. Why can't it be turned around so that the front yards are facing?
Good question.
And of course, limit the number of houses decently spaced to 20, 22.
Let me answer you this way.
Yes.
There are two ways to approach this. One is through the manner in which we regulate the zone through the zoning. The second one is through what we call site plan design. Not to get technical on you, but the planning board look at this and does have a site plan concept approach that would eliminate what is being proposed by the developer as a parallel outside roadway.
Right.
We don't like it. What we would like to consider is an internal roadway. I mean, an access road that comes in from Whippany Road, bisects the property, and exit
Right.
Park Avenue. Within the road, a cul-de-sac area might come off of that inside the property. Can all the properties face Whippany Road and Park Avenue without having their driveways come out? Yes, because what we would do in the design is consider all the front yards of these homes facing Whippany Road, and those that face Park Avenue, but their driveways and their garages would be to the rear of their homes, and they would access the internal roadways. Right. So there would be no curb cuts, as we would call it, for all those driveways coming out.
But that letter that was written, I've forgotten the names of it, that implied that the back of the houses would be facing the roads. The one that was just read into the record.
We're talking about the design. The builder would have to consider the design of the houses where the front of the house, the front door, the main entrance, etc., would not have a driveway coming in that way.
Right,
And
no, you wouldn't have a driveway. You would walk around and probably like most of those houses, people go in the back door. I mean, it's just pragmatic, but it's attractive, and we don't have another blacktop upon blacktop upon blacktop.
Right.
And then I have one other question. Is there any talk about leaving 20,000, 25,000 square feet so that we have a nice vision of Whippany and Hanover Township sign? In other words, it wouldn't come all the way down to the corner,
Right.
the internal road. Is that a possibility? Am I making sense?
Yeah,
Please?
I can only say this. Legally, the town cannot require a developer to contribute
I know.
land
I
for public
understand.
purposes. We
Right.
can buy it from him. Having said that, I spoke to the developer myself and asked him of his willingness to set aside some area. I didn't say 25,000, and he said he would be willing to do that, but he didn't commit to a certain amount of 20 or 25,000 square feet. He said if the town wanted to have a feature there at the entrance to the township, he'd be willing to
I
set
see it
aside
as
some land
practical,
for that.
possibly pragmatic, because I'm not sure if I were buying a house, I would want my house at the end of that internal cul-de-sac, right at the corner of Park and Whippany.
And I think he understands that as well, that no one's going to want to put a house right out the
I think
intersection.
I've used my 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe, I'm going to count this as number 1, but go ahead.
Joe Mahalko, 12 to Whippany section of Hanover Township, and I thank you very much for counting this as number 1, because as we were speaking, and Mr. Branshaw just mentioned something that triggered, I wasn't even going to get up, but I am here. In speaking to the developer, he had verbally agreed to do such and such. I ask all, and I know every one of you that's taken a ride up North Road and gone on a new development of R10A and tell me that this is what the builder said. It's not what the builder said. It's not what he verbally agreed to. It's whatever he damn well pleased up there, and we have instead 16 patio homes going up. We have 16 two-story basement homes that are going to cause a greater impact than what we were all befuddled with by his verbal agreements. So when we consider what's happening over here, I am so pleased that you were able to negotiate away from condos. You know my abhorrence of condos in this town. I think in your considerations and your abilities to bargain back and forth, you went just a tad too far with R10A. It's not on our onus, or it's not the town's onus to worry about how much money this guy's going to make. I could have seen then he did Windermere. When he did Windermere on Jefferson Road, North Jefferson Road, we granted him R10. We got a soccer field for granting him R10. When we allowed Grande to develop with a zone change, we got 2 baseball fields. We're granting this guy R10. What's he giving us? For the record, I'm showing 0. Only aggravation. I think it behooves the Township Committee to address the letter from the Planning Board that says this is probably not a good idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
No, don't clap.
Thank you very much, sir. That's not necessary.
Take some time.
We will conduct ourselves
I'm
in a
gonna
very
keep my,
civil manner. We always have.
I'll get to my description of my residency shorter. I don't want to impose on Joe. Jim Farr, 2 Mount Vernon Way, Whippany, New Jersey. You mentioned that the size of the lots would be approximately 10,000 square feet. So for the education of the audience, if they haven't figured out, that's a 100 by 100 foot lot in square, all right? The property is 6 acres. And there was some time where somebody was saying we could put 25 or 24, 25 houses on 6 acres. Without accounting for the road work, that puts 4 houses on an acre. And an acre is approximately 209 by 209, which falls within your 100 by 100, okay? And it was also related to my wife and I that 14 houses under the 15A, under the R15, was not economically feasible for any developer to build. Well, if that's the case, then the question becomes, if that's economical, then how come the Gulick property, which is 4.5 acres?
For the record, I don't think we ever commented that it was not economically feasible to build
No,
up
the
the thing.
developer did.
Right. Oh,
To
I
us.
see. I'm
You-
sorry.
You
Go
never
ahead.
said that.
Go ahead,
I
sir.
don't want to accuse anybody. All right? When you got the adjacent property, which is 4.5 acres, without counting roadway, that puts a little bit over 1 house, like a 1 1/4 house on an acre. Now we got apples and oranges. And if you increase it to 25, we really have apples and oranges. And that apparently is economical. So I question the economical feasibility aspect of, I can't build 14, but I can do 25, but the 14 is not economical on 6. If you throw the roadway in for the 6 acre property, rough estimate, and somebody can correct me, but just rough estimate, you're probably taking away about an acre and a half, acre to an acre and a half of that land, which brings the 24 houses to be put onto, 4.5 acres. Whereas in the other property, it's 4.5 acres for 5 houses. So my point is, we got a high density that may occur on that corner as far as dwellings go. Let's see.
I'll give you another minute.
Okay. The church has been on the property for 45 years, since 1970. They've been a good neighbor, cannot deny that. I think most of the people that signed the petition, which I was one, my wife was one, we don't object to another church. We don't object to open land. We don't object to the township taking over that church somehow if they can, and turning it into either a department that moves out of this building that might be crowded, using that church for a civic center, using for a polling place instead of using the school and causing problems at the school during polling. In other words, you have to lock the doors, all the rest of that. Usually for the rabies clinic in respect to Cedar Knolls Fire Company, on all those other things, and you could move the health department over there. If you want to move the library over there because it's taking up too much space, you can put them over there, possibly. I don't know the inside, I don't know the footage of the building. Okay, but all those things are conceivable if we put our minds to it and we think outside the box, rather than inside the box and say this is the only thing we can do. And with my only 1 minute left, additional housing, on its density, will put a great strain on your emergency services. They're operating, I believe they're operating at their limit probably now, because they're all volunteering. Otherwise, if they weren't, Cedar Knolls wouldn't have the big sign up, need volunteers, nor would, let's say, Whippany. And the other thing comes up, I'd like you to consider in this long run, that I know this has nothing to do with the zoning, but it does if the housing goes in. There was a talk about, let's say, moving the center divider, concrete divider down Whippany Road to stop people from making a left-hand turn. There's one thing I would like you to consider, if you think about that. How does the emergency service coming up from Whippany Road from Route 10 turn left into that housing development? Time is critical, whether it's a medical, fire, or police. You'll never jump the curb with a police car. I don't think you're going to jump the curb with an ambulance, and I don't want the fire rigs. I really don't. They can't afford to go down to the traffic light. Can't afford that at all. You can't afford to have them say, well, drive on the left-hand side of the road. That's all right now, because to be honest about it, the traffic on Whippany Road, it peaks at 8 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock at night.
I'm going to give you a sum up, and that's it.
Okay.
Thank you. I apologize.
So my summary is, let's do something positive for the township, for the families, for the neighboring township, Morris Township. okay? And it comes out positive and is beneficial to all.
Thank you very much. Reverend, for the record.
I'm approximately
No,
63 years of age.
Reverend Curry, your name and address.
Howard Curry, 120 Park Avenue.
Thank you, I'm happy now. Go ahead.
I'm Howard, pleased to meet you, Happy. I've spoken in public, I've listened to public discussions for approximately 30 years as a minister. We meet quarterly, we have meetings like this, people speak for and oppose against various propositions, motions. I'm disturbed that anyone who stands in front of this podium and slanders someone's reputation or implies some sort of malicious intent. There's such a thing as public decorum. I would recommend that whoever stands up here and speaks, he or she speak to the issue and not in any way imply somebody's motives are less than admirable. Now, Mr. Mayor, I know that you're in a secular public setting and this is not an ecclesiastical setting, but I think the rules of decorum should be applied all to every meeting that we have. So really, I know that sometimes people get emotional, sometimes people have desires and goals and for all sorts of reasons say things that perhaps on reflection they would regret saying. Let me encourage everybody who comes, speak to an issue for or against or give your arguments, but do not malign, do not imply that someone is coming up with some sort of plan that may be less than honorable. I mean, we're gentlemen and ladies here, and let's please act like that.
Thank you, Reverend. Appreciate that, really. I think emotion does run high. I've experienced it for a lot of years, as many of my friends in this room know. It does us no good to go on emotions, and certainly just addressing the facts and the issues surrounding the zone would be what I would hope we would just focus on. Sir, go ahead.
My name is Sean Parkett. I live at 7 Terry Drive in Morris Township. As a resident of Morris Township, the emergency services issues and all those other issues that were brought up don't directly impact me. I just have one question, and that really is, will the proposed project diminish the value of adjacent or adjoining properties? As much research as I've been able to do on this since the last meeting, I've found for and against in studies that have been conducted in New Jersey and in as well as New York. But in almost all cases, there's some sort of analysis that's been done with comparable properties, comparable zoning changes, and comparable impact over time. Has any of that been performed in this case?
Have we looked at comparable zoning changes and what their impacts are on property values?
Yes.
I will tell you the planning board does not look at that in their consideration of zones. They don't make decisions based upon economic value to the developer or not the developer. They're looking at whether or not the zone change is a negative or positive criteria against the master plan for the township. That sounds pretty complicated, but they don't consider the economic. If there's been issues surrounding how the property has been completed, that's between the township and the developer, and the township's responsibility to see how or why the developer deviated from that. But I don't want to go off on that.
No, I understand the compliance issues with the construction side of it. My question is changing it from 15,000 square foot lots to in the middle of this cluster of all the zoning with 15,000 square foot lots, to then plunk in the middle of that 10,000 square foot lots. What's going to be the impact on the adjoining R15 zone properties on their property value? I mean, my home is my largest asset.
Right.
Okay, it's 70% of what I owe.
Right.
And I think I have a vested interest in and not implying any ill thoughts on the developer. I know he's in it to make a profit. When I was in business to make a profit. But if you can't make profit on 17 homes or whatever that would be fit under the R15 zoning, maybe you ought to be in another business. I'm finished.
To the extent I can answer you, and I will try, and I'm answering as a committee member, I'm not answering as a member of our planning, I think that the Township Committee certainly is not going to do something or want to do something that is going to diminish the value of the area or your property in that zone. Not want to. The considerations of the uses for that property, A and B, as I explained in the beginning of this thing, which one would impact your neighbors and you more? I think we've looked at all of that, but thank you.
My biggest concern was, and the red flag was, it's inconsistent with the existing master plan, and that's a red flag for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Floor is still open?
Hi. I'm Dick Nixon, 49 McNabb, at Cedar Knolls. But I want to thank Mr. Mahalko for his comment about verbal ideas from the builder. There's no such thing as a verbal promise. And just as an example, you can't keep your doctor, if you know what I mean. Well, we have not heard a truth from a presidential politician in a long time, at least 6 years, and going back probably a little further than that. So the high officials don't have the authority to not only ignore the Constitution or the zoning laws, for instance, in this case. So we have to kind of stick with a little bit. I think if the comment about small property taking value away from adjacent properties has to be considered, I'm a little bit of a real estate professional. I did that for 12 or 13 years. I remember a joke of some of my clients used to tell me about my business, and I'd say I know a little bit about brain surgery too, but go ahead. Well, I also know some other things. I was a director of a large research institute in Colorado. I have a background in physics and engineering. I worked for the federal government designing high degree and high fancy weapon systems, many of which have or have not surfaced, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not speaking from complete stupidity, but I know with a pie-shaped piece of property, it's kind of to divide the property into 100 by 100 lots. So there's going to be a number of odd-shaped lots, no matter how you do it. But you made that it's not your ability to worry about whether anyone can make money on a property. Well, if the property sells for $4 million, and I'm just going to make a quick little analogy, and he builds one house, he's going to have to sell that house for probably $11 million, right, of which he probably couldn't get. Well, if the property is divided into, et cetera, down to a smaller, let's say 10,000 square feet now, and 2/3 of the property is houses, and 1/3 of the property disappears for roads. I don't know what that number is or that ratio. I'm just using a dumb example. Then, on 10,000 square foot of property, he cannot produce a house that's comparable times the multiple of the number of lots he has to whatever he could get on a larger piece of property. Now, there's a point where it makes sense and where it makes sense. And again, I don't think that's the town's position, but the price of the property is only up to any agreement between the buyer and the seller, all right? And the seller can sell it or more than the property's worth if he finds a buyer willing to pay the price. He can sell it for more. Well, the property divided, if it's 15,000 square feet per home, roughly, and the property divides to produce 14 or 15 homes.
Give me a little more.
I haven't seen the plot, so I can't analyze that.
What I'm saying is, are you trying to make an argument for the values of these homes? I'm a little lost in
Well, I think the Township Committee gets taxes from every homeowner.
Sure.
If the property value goes down on 22, pick a number, 25 homes in the area, because this development that's proposed is producing an inferior quality home, then the property value of those homes is going to go down, and eventually people are going to complain about how much taxes they're paying, and eventually the taxes would have to be adjusted accordingly. So that's a real comment, and that's a real comment that I would think that the committeemen ought to consider. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think you should consider it. All right. And the only other thing I have to say is good luck. You have a tough job. But I don't think, and whether it's a church, because I think the rules say a church can put up a building almost anywhere, right? And there's hardly an objection. If the property is 10A, as you propose, you can put restrictions. Why can't you put restrictions and call it a 10A, Section 234, Item 179, and make it only specific for that piece of property? I would think you do that. Is that right?
Correct.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. Correct. Make some cogent argument, but on the values of these properties, I think in one case, and again, if I talk to value, then I'm being influenced by that, and it's not the way you zone. But I can tell you that, Michael, what is it, Hanover Ridge? Hanover Ridge. What is this sign from 500,000? 500,000. 600,000. So I'm just sharing this with you. So I'm going to presume from a market standpoint, because you should know that, that these homes go in the sixes and up on this property. So having said that, Lenny, how are you doing?
Yes. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Len Ferriello, Lippin of Hanover Township. Actually, Monroe, it's actually historically known as. As you know, you received a petition from 36 individual property owners within 200 feet of the property, 40 property owners in the neighborhood in the near vicinity of the property, and 5 Hanover Township residents at large. Everyone in the petition is protesting the R10A. They're not protesting development of the property, and the R10A, and I don't have a prepared statement, but I just want to point out a few things. First of all, it's one lot, it's not 10,000 square feet, it's not 15,000. But the problem is, there's no provision to limit the size of the house, or regulate the configuration, or the parking. And my biggest point is there's no provision in the zone to maintain an adequate landscaped area, an open space area at the entrance to Hanover Township. And I believe that this is really important because as people enter the town, you don't want them to see the front or backyard of someone's property. So, just squeezed into that point. So I believe that's part of what we need in a zone like this. And also currently, the houses are 2.5 stories and 16 feet apart, and I don't believe that's acceptable. So I know you have some discretion during planning board, but if a developer comes in with homes, and he probably can't fit the 25, but they're going to be 16 feet apart, and he's going to try to get as many homes in there as possible. So what I recommended before, and I'm recommending now, is that you defeat the R10A ordinance, or zone, and introduce another. And the other zone you could call an R10 cluster if you want. Well, first of all, I'd say and most people here believe just leave it the way it is. But if you must
leave it the way it is, R15?
Yes.
And accept whatever the outcome?
Accept the outcome.
You're saying that?
It's in the petition and people signed it, yes. And people also made comments individual comments that I think you got everybody's comments. But what I'm saying is if you must compromise and change a zone, do like a cluster zone where you said you can't require to give up some land, but we do it all the time. If you take the amount of homes that could fit in the entire lot and cluster them, you can have the open area at the entrance to Hanover Township. But most importantly, I think, is 16 feet apart. That's row housing. That's not going to be desirable. And you know, I didn't think the townhouses were desirable, and this is also not desirable. I think we could come up with a win-win situation for everyone, and I would hope that you table this or defeat this ordinance. We could sit down, spokespeople from the neighborhood, the developer, the landowner, sit down and come up with something that everybody would be happy with. We could sit with the planner and write an R10 or 15 cluster zone. And I believe it would satisfy everyone. And I just want you to bear in mind that these people signed this, they weren't coerced. This was just something that we put together, and they not only the current zone ordinance, but they offered some recommendations, and I think they're worth considering. And with that, I'll say have a good evening, and I wish you luck on your deliberations and your decision.
Mr. Ferriello, just for clarification for the record.
Yes.
Did I hear you correctly that you said there were 36 protest petitions?
36 individual signers.
Because your protest petition for those within 200 feet are 24 plus one late one, so we'll say 25.
Right.
But
their husbands and wives signed them. I counted 36.
There's a total of 31 outside of the 200
No,
foot area.
to clarify, I said
Not properties.
that some of the petitions were signed by a husband and a wife, double property owners. So I said 36 individual property owners, and that's a correct number.
36 individual,
I'm
36
talking about
individuals,
property.
36
not
prop-
individual
36
property
properties, Lynn?
Okay, this is
36 people who,
30 property owners. And however many properties...
People in one house, and they both signed a petition, that's
Yes.
one property owner. I mean, you can't say that's two property owners, right? And it's one property that's being represented.
Represented, yes.
You get well, what if there were 4 people in the house?
Okay, it
that signed
doesn't matter. This is a foolish argument, in my opinion. I'll accept what Joe Georgia said. There were
I'm just saying, from a
24
technical
petitions.
point, the total number of properties are 24.
24.
Okay.
And 7...
One outside of the district.
Right.
Okay.
And only 7 did not sign. And I just meant that some petitions were signed by a husband and a wife, individual.
does the administrator have your petitions, Lynn?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So you have the language?
I hand-delivered them.
I have everything, yes.
You have the language that the petitioner signed?
Yes, I do. They're
I
all
see
here.
one?
Sure. We have a question, though, from Mr. Capola that he wants me to address to you, and that is, are you in favor of the R15 zone?
Yes, I believe everybody's in favor of the R-15.
Stay as it is?
Yeah. That's in the petition, too. It clearly states, the undersigned supports the current zone or would accept a new zone standard as follows, and gave some suggestions. No building pavement within 50 feet of Whippany Road. No building or pavement within 50 feet of Whippany Road. Front houses facing Whippany Road and Park Avenue. 50-foot setbacks. Vehicle access to homes, parking, porches, decks, and backyard activity face the interior road cul-de-sac. Open common area, minimum of 25,000 square feet, which is one building lot. Dedicated or deed restricted to provide landscape and an adequate visible setback at the corner entrance to Hanover Township. So these are some of the suggestions, and as I said, I think to really craft a zone that everybody could live with, I think that you should involve the residents.
I think we agree we agree, it's that we disagree in just the approach. But I think we agree that we are not in favor of the design that would allow driveways onto Whippany Road and front yards on the Whippany Road, such, but we do want houses fronting on Whippany and Park Avenues. We do want an internal system. We definitely disagree with a parallel, what would you call, road system within there. Planning board has gone over it. You sat with me when
Yes.
we did go over it. So as far as in additional areas, we also agree, I think I do, that it's a sensitive corner for line of sight, and that the far corner should be either given up to an area for landscape design of some open area of for both reasons of beautification and safety, for visibility on that site. All of these things, I'm confident in a planning board of your own neighbors, et cetera, maybe you're not, but I am, that they can address the design comfortably in site plan. Yeah, but having said that, but George asked the question, you answered it, that you would prefer it remain the R15. In a perfect world, I would agree with you. But there are offers on the table for institutional use. Now, people should know, our folks here in this room should know, institutional uses, churches, schools, and such, all right, are allowed in any zone. We cannot prohibit that kind of a use from going into this residential zone. And I think you understand there are contracts out there right now for this property. Having said that, you still stand on the fact that if the zone remains the way it is, institutional use may, you understand initially.
Yeah, and so does everybody else here, I believe.
Okay,
It's even part of the petition.
And everyone seems to be in favor with that potential use.
There's individual comments in the petition, and the majority of people did agree that they wouldn't object to that. It's right in the petition, and those that did made comments to that. So if you read the petition, I even took the time to to type up all the comments.
You summarized
that were-
everything.
Yes, I
which the
did.
members of the governing body received.
So, I know abilities in the planning, but they're still going to be 16 feet apart, no matter how you look at it. And there's still going to be large houses, they're not regulated. And there is no give back, with guaranteed give back. And I don't think anybody could guarantee such a thing, so.
Well,
Okay, so I appreciate
not
it.
mine.
It's not mine either.
Is that you? Who's that? Is that you, Len? Who's
Not
beeping?
me.
That's, okay. All right, Len, have you, oh, Fred, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you-
Mayor, if I
Counsel-
just.
Counsel may want to respond.
Yeah, for the record, just so, I'm just speaking from a legal perspective and some of the facts that have been out there, just for everyone's understanding. I think the mayor, in the beginning of this public hearing, just tried to delineate for everybody what the choices are. And I just want to make it clear after some of this discussion. You have before you an ordinance that the governing body has come up with. It's the 10A. If it's approved tonight, then that's an option for development for the property. If it's defeated, then you're back at the R15. If you're back at the R15, what's been made clear in all these discussions is the property, based on what the property owner is saying, is not marketable for any other use except, as indicated, an institutional use. And just as it's been pointed out that there may be some concerns that would be raised in a planning board application and things like that, no one knows what the intensity of the use. There's nothing wrong with the use. It's always, the concern is, what would the intensity be? And nobody can answer that. If it stays at R15, everyone needs to be made aware, just like there's concerns if it goes R10A.
Excuse me 1 second. Does an individual have a phone that keeps ringing now?
Not me.
If you'd leave the room with it, we would appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I turned it off twice. And it goes back on.
I'm sorry, Fred.
Yeah, so if So I just think it's important to understand that if the ordinance is defeated, and if there's a consensus that says we want to stay with the R15, the same thing goes. There's no guarantee as to what the intensity, I'm going to say, of the institutional use is, because you don't know. You don't know the intensity of what's coming in. And you, at the same token, one thing you do know is that the property owner is saying under R15, there really is no suitor for the property to be developed for a residential type use. Because if there were, we wouldn't be here. It would have been under contract or developed. And what the property owner is saying and has said to the Township Committee is, look, if you want to at least invite options to the property, then you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to come up with a policy and a zone that would invite alternate uses and some choices. So that's what the governing body did. The first ordinance talked about age-restricted detached housing, and then there was a protest, and then the governing body looked at that and said, you know what?
council 5 minutes, but go ahead.
We're gonna defeat that, and then we're gonna come up with a new ordinance and another use. And so what I'm saying is, if it's defeated this evening, and if the consensus is of the governing body based on what's said, R15, understand, there isn't a guarantee that the property owner has a suitor. There isn't anyone right now. There isn't a guarantee there'd be any other legislation to change the zone. There isn't a guarantee that anyone else would be out there that would be willing to develop the property. So it would be for some type of institutional type use. To what extent, it's unknown, because right now, from everything we've seen, it certainly would be at a much greater extent than the present use of the property. So I just think factually it's important to understand that. So.
Can I address a place of worship? So I think that could be addressed through zoning, and I think the Township Committee could introduce ordinances.
I don't agree with you, Mr. Fiorello, on one count. The existing use has been, the existing property's been underutilized. You know, so
Yes.
it's going to be a different intensity of use, no matter whether you say you could regulate or not.
Yes.
It's been underutilized, and that, in a 10, gives a comfort zone to everyone in the neighborhood that won't exist going forward.
Well,
Okay.
but what, if it's not the R15, we could still write a zone that everyone would be happy with, that would address issues like the space between the homes, the size. I mean, 4-bedroom, 4-bath homes are like McMansions close together like that. That's the kind of things that need to be in the ordinance. There needs to be a provision for the open space. So you could defeat this ordinance, and if you feel that you have to reintroduce an ordinance to improve the densities of the property, you could do it in such a way that it would be acceptable to the neighbors. And that's really what we're asking you to do, is consider another ordinance that might be a compromise, that might make it attractive for somebody to develop it. And so that's really the issue, and I just hope that the people that signed this petition, I mean, they were all sincere, and this was the best way to get the message across. The majority of the people, over 33% of the landmass surrounding the area, do not want this new zone. So I think we're all willing to accept a church if we have to, or a compromise ordinance. And I'll let other people speak for themselves, but the petition speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. The floor is still open. Dr. Uyghur.
Dr. Bob Uyghur, 49 Manga Road, Cedar Knolls, and also 133 Park Avenue, Morris Township, directly across the street, right on the corner of Park and Whippany Road, most directly affected. First of all, the church, I've got, I believe, 3 points. First of all, the church is going to sell this property if we have to somebody soon. They've given us an extra month at this point to talk about this, and we keep talking about it, they're going to sell. And, you know, whatever comes at that point. Secondly, talking about land values, they're talking about 600,000 possibly these homes coming at. My home there on the corner, my neighbor, who also did not sign the petition, we are both in favor of this going through. We talked about it and said our homes are probably worth in the neighborhood of the low $500,000 at this point in that area. They're split-level homes. They're on five levels, 2.5 baths, 4 bedrooms in each of these homes that were built there in Morris Township. It should value because you're getting a heck of a home there, and if they're selling a smaller home for $600,000, our should go up. So that's my opinion at this point, that it should increase the value of the homes in that area because you're going to get more land and more house at that point. As I said, we are very much in favor of this going through, and a house like this, I think, is very beneficial to, I'm in my sixth decade right now, and I am sure as heck getting tired of shoveling snow, and something with a little less footage there and something a little less to take care of, I think would be very beneficial to some older people. I guess I consider myself older people to go. So again, I'm in favor of this ordinance going through, and I wish you the best of luck tonight.
Thank you.
Michael, vote for Jock Terrace. I believe it's the Birch Hill section of Whippany. Hanover Township. Last week it took me 30 minutes to drive from my neighborhood to Pine Plaza. A trip less than 3 miles took 30 minutes. Shame on me for not cutting through the neighborhoods, traveling back behind the high school and on the Eden Lane to get to Whippany Road. I suppose that the increased traffic on the side streets is an expected byproduct of current developmental trends in the township. I'm sure we'll be seeing more signage prohibiting through traffic in many neighborhoods should this zone change be approved. My daily commute takes me 2 miles to Route 24 via Park Avenue and Columbia Turnpike. Some mornings, this trip can take 10 minutes, sometimes longer. I've witnessed many a near miss as frustrated drivers make illegal U-turns so they can go wait to access Route 24 from Whippany Road. In the evenings, I'm thankful I turn on the Ford Hill Road to get home. Staying on Park Ave, headed to Whippany Road, only leads to another choke point. While we sit at the hub of Morris County and at the crossroads of 287 and 24, not far from Route 80, traffic in this community is already beyond capacity. I do understand the need for development and the many variables bring to the community. I do appreciate the work that our Township Committee does to keep our tax rate stable and low. The proposed zone change allows for overdeveloping a property that will adversely affect the currently exasperated traffic condition of the adjacent intersection and tertiary roads. There are currently too many cars and not enough roads to support this zone change. As a resident of this community for almost 50 years, I grew up on Carla Drive in Llewellyn Court. I have previously resided on Whippany Road, currently live on Jock Terrace. My parents, my in-laws, my brother and my brother-in-law all reside in the township. Maybe I'm a townie. I have fond memories growing up in a community, an industrious mill town, if you will. It was every bit of what a hometown should be. I can remember when Whippany Road was only 2 lanes and speed limits were obeyed, if not enforced. Our small town has evolved. There are no longer any mills, a soap factory, or a cork factory. The Easter Bunny and Santa Claus make more trips by train through Hanover Township these days than any freight traveling by rail. I do love the quick check. It was a long time coming. It's sad that when the owner of that corner wanted his own change several years back for a similar plan, he couldn't get one. So instead, a now thriving corner for so many years became overflow parking for the funeral home or a tailgating review area for the Memorial Day parade.
1 minute.
This evening, I, like other, 1 minute?
1 minute.
Lenny got 12.
Four.
The attendants will stand at this podium to make an appeal to you,
After 5.
our elected officials, to consider the proposed zone change at the property where Emmanuel Presbyterian Church currently sits. There are no great benefits to this township if the proposed change is approved. I believe that the negative impacts of a clustered housing development on this corner far outweigh any positives. The traffic at this intersection has never been great. It has increased exponentially since my brother was nearly killed there in 1983 by an inattentive motorist trying to beat the light. Rezoning this property without first studying the impact of increased traffic at this intersection appears to be a decision that hasn't been completely thought through. It seems like a hasty decision. I've heard all about the potential ratables that developing this land could possibly bring to the coffers of our community. If left as currently zoned, and the property remains used for the purpose of religious assembly, the township loses nothing. Who's to gain by the zone change? Does anyone other than the developer have anything to gain?
If you could sum up, sir.
I'm summing up. The residents neighboring this corner certainly do not. When it is so evident by the numbers, either in person to be heard or in writing by petition or via social media, that the community at large, both in Hanover and Morris Townships, are opposed to the proposed zone change, why is it, as elected officials, you appear to have made a decision without considering the impact on our community? While no one other than myself here this evening, I do believe that there is a majority that shares my opinion. I believe that with the development of the South Campus at former Lucent property to include reconfiguring the intersections of Whippany and Parsippany Roads, the potential development of the farm property we know as Richard's Stand, and the potential development of the church property, that Whippany Road will ultimately become impassable. I would respectfully ask that you, our elected committee, reconsider the decision to rezone this property and instead leave it as it is currently zoned. I would also ask that you refocus your efforts to develop other sites within our township that could both benefit the community and create greater revenue with less impact. Eden Mill, Burlek Slabs, Bear Stearns, all come to mind as parcels beckoning for development. In closing, I hope that you will decide to leave the property as currently zoned. It should be the owner's responsibility to find a suitable buyer, willing and capable to use the property as it's currently zoned.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is still open. Anyone would like to be heard at this time? Robert, how you doing?
I had a pretty good message tonight, but I had a lengthy talk with the planning board chairman, and he gave me a little bit of confidence. My biggest concern is I was opposed to the apartments. We've been opposed in this town. We never wanted an apartment anyplace until COA came along. Now we're getting them all over the place. I'm not concerned with the R10, but my biggest concern is you're going to trust the planning board to come up with a plan that is more accessible, like 20 or 21 units. And honestly, Ron, I don't have any confidence in the planning board when it comes to housing. They were in favor of 34 units at the meatpacking plant. Thank God they got it down to 16. One of the planning board members thought that 340 rental apartments at the Bear East-South campus would be okay. Where does that come from? And then over here on this side, they thought 35 condominium units would be fine. I don't trust them on this. I did have a talk with Bill. As far as I'm concerned, 20 or 21 units on that side, that would be about 7 more than you'd get with the R15. It would have a chance for the man to sell his property, but I'll be honest with you, I'm going to come to every planning board meeting when you're discussing this, because I don't know who the builder is. Nobody knows who the builder is. We know who's procuring the property, but we don't know who's building these, because it seems like every time this man procures a piece of property, somebody else does the building on it. And that's what I'm afraid has happened with the meatpacking plant. And we don't even know who they are. Why don't we know who these builders are before they suddenly come into our town? Every other guy that wants to build a house, he's got to come in and present himself, tell him what he's going to do. It's just the other case I bring up is a fella on Troy Hills Road had 2 beautiful lots. He wanted to build single-family houses on them. That's all he wanted to do. They conformed in every way except one house was short on square footage. They turned him down. Maybe because they didn't know houses couldn't be connected. I don't understand. I'm not sure. But they turned him down. He goes to court. He comes back and wins it hands down because the board was so stubborn with it. I'm serious when I say, please, and I ask you, Bill, please, make sure that this comes up something decent if you approve the R10. If you can get it down to 20 or 21, which is what I was told originally it was going to come down to, then I think the people could live with it. But you need an architect. Please don't use the picture that was in that weekly news, because that scared the hell out of anybody. Find somebody that really knows how to draw a plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I think that, and by the way, the floor is still open, but I think when the planning board looked at this and we seemed pretty strong about wanting an internal road system and not wanting this parallel road system, I certainly couldn't support it. But if it's an internal road system, it struck me, and I've been involved with planning quite a while, as you have. His need for 23, 24 set units can't happen. Can't fit. It doesn't work. The configuration doesn't hold it. It may support 21, 22, which from the start is what we were talking about getting this down to. But having said that, this isn't a planning review. You know that, Bob. I'm not into that. I can't see, until we see a site plan, until we see what lands we want to give up on the corner for an open space, till we see how the driveway system will work in a cul-de-sac, till we see what the front yards look like. I mean, this all has to come before the planning board, and if you're there for those meetings, you know they're going to listen. You know they'll hear. I mean, you may feel negative about it. They do listen, and this is it's a good strong board.
Made aware of when those meetings are going to be. At least let somebody know so they could tell the people so they could come to those planning board meetings.
Oh, they definitely, by the way, let's, a little plug for the meeting schedules are the second, third, and fourth Tuesday nights of every month. Second, third, and fourth Tuesdays here in the municipal building, they start at 7 o'clock. Well, second Tuesday is a concept meeting. The other two are for site plans that come in. And those meetings are open for public comment. You're certainly invited. I truly to be here for those meetings. I mean, so many times, we had a young woman here not long ago argue that, well, she sees all the meetings and she doesn't like what she sees, so therefore, and I said, well, are you here to comment? No, I watch it on Facebook, Well, when do we air? I think we air a week from now, maybe a week, okay? Doesn't help me, okay? Like being here tonight. That's what it is. All right. I'm sorry, I'm done dictating. The floor is still open. Anyone else would like to comment at this time, please do so.
Hi,
Lois, how you doing?
Good, Ron. Lois DeCaro, 114 Park Avenue, Monroe section of Hanover Township. Correct one? And I hear what you've been saying, Lenny, and I actually agree with everything Bob had to say. I'm a little selfish because our property borders the church property by, I guess about 500 feet. So I was for the townhouses because, you'd have an HOA that would oversee what's going on with the back of the properties facing my property. So I was very okay with that, and the clustered, units 4 to a building, green space in between. I was a little worried about these houses because of what Lenny said, them being more like row homes. But I have a question. What is the difference between R10 and R10A exactly?
Blaze is here
Blaze?
tonight.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. There's a number of differences. The most critical difference is that in the R10, everybody builds a house on their own lot, and the lot has to be 10,000 square feet, 10,500 square feet minimum. 70 by 150. Those are the minimum dimensions for the lot. The R10A is sort of a hybrid between a conventional single-family development like that and a townhouse development. in that it's single-family homes, not attached to each other like a townhouse, but they're all on one lot, like a townhouse development is. So there aren't individual lot lines with individual fences, with individual sheds and accessory structures and things in the yard. But it's more like a townhouse development where you may own the land that your building is on, and you might own maybe the land your driveway's on, but the rest of the open space, the common area, is owned by an association, like a townhouse development. So that's the fundamental difference between the R10A and the R10. There are some other differences, obviously, because we don't have lot lines. The units are, the setback, as Lenny noted, is a little less in the R10A. There's a few other changes, like the R10 has a 40-foot setback from a public street. The R10A is 50 feet, so it's pushed back a little further from the road. There's a number of restrictions in the R10A that don't apply in the R10. For example, in an R10A, everybody's entitled to build a shed, is entitled to have swing sets, is entitled to have a pool in their backyard and so forth. In an R10A, you can't have any of that. In an R10, everybody would have their own driveway out to the street. In an R10A, you're not allowed to do that. Those are some of the fundamental differences. There are a lot of similarities, and same heights allowed for the buildings and so forth, but those are I would say, where the key differences are. R10A is a little denser than the R10, but it's compensated for by not having all the sheds and not having fences and not having pools and swing sets in everybody's yard and not having individual driveways out to the street.
Okay, so you'd have an association making sure the landscaping stays a certain way and
Yes.
things aren't hung off
It's all
the
being
decks.
maintained uniformly. It's all designed sort of as a whole, as opposed to everybody having their own design. And it has to be maintained that way as well. So in a way, you get a better design by having a condo arrangement, because everybody's agreeing on the design, not everybody doing their own thing.
Okay.
So like I said, it's sort of a hybrid between what we typically think of as single family and what we think of as townhouse. It's a little bit of both.
What is the buffer, side and back buffers to adjacent property?
There's a buffer on your side where you abut. There is a buffer requirement for both the fence and plantings adjacent to a single-family home, single-family lots in the R15 zone.
And what is the buffer with the church?
I have to look that up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, church
I'm
is
worried
allowed
about the church.
much more intensive development than either
what
the
I thought.
R10 or the R10A, but I'll tell you in a second.
You know, for us, it's a quality of life if there's an intensive use next door by a
Absolutely.
big cultural center.
Yep, I understand.
You want the yard distances for the church?
The buffer between us and them.
Okay, it's the same, I have to look in another section.
Mr. Branchow's looking this up. Does anybody know the scores of the basketball games tonight? NCAA tournament taking place?
Notre Dame and Wisconsin both won.
Notre Dame won. Thank you, Sylvia.
You know, one thing I wanted to bring up, I think that Gulick property is only a couple acres, by the way, not 4.
What property?
The Gulick property, it was brought up before, where there's going to be 5 homes, we think, eventually.
It's adjacent to the church.
It's behind me.
In the back, remember they got that zoning changed to 5 houses.
Oh, you mean the property that got the 5-lot cul-de-sac
Yes.
subdivision?
Yes.
Yes, that went to the Board of Adjustment, got a minor density variance.
Yes.
Yeah.
To us townies, that's the Gulick property.
Okay, I forget the name. I know the developer was 299.
Yeah,
Whippany
I
Developers.
should have said that.
Church is required to have a buffer, I think, of 20 feet.
You're down to 3 minutes, please.
I'm sorry, this ordinance is so hard to use.
I guess, Blaze, I'm just wondering if they can be like right up to our property with parking or whatever. I'm worried
What?
about that.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
There's a 20-foot buffer required for a church, within which they can't have any buildings or pavement.
20 foot.
20 feet, yes.
All right, well, that was it. I mean, I support this R10A I think I have a better idea of what will be next to me with the R10A. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. Floor is still open.
Hi, Judy Iradi from the Countrywood section of Hanover Township. I have some questions about the current R10A, and you're saying that you would like the houses to all face inwards or out. Yeah, would like them to face the roadway, plus no looping road.
No loop road.
No loop road. Some other things that you said I mean, I guess there's 25 houses in the ordinance, but you'd like maybe around 21.
Well, we didn't think in some early sketching that we did on planning,
Okay.
at least yours truly did,
Sure.
that could support the number of homes that the builder wanted.
Okay.
If you do the internal road system, when you give up that kind of land to the bisecting road and then a cul-de-sac road coming off of that, and when you break up your lots, this is a gospel, it appeared to me that he may 21 to 21, 23, something like that. Again, we'd have to see a site plan. But
So,
then the other considerations that have come out here is for him to give up some property at the corner, which I think is a safety issue as well, Bill, that has to be looked at. And then that may be a building lot, for all we know. Maybe one full building lot that can't be accommodated at the corner. So, these are things that planning has to look at in the site plan concept.
Okay. But this ordinance, does it have any restricting him from building the houses with separate driveways going out to the road, or building the houses with the loop road, or building 25 houses? Does there anything in the ordinance that restricts him from doing that?
Judy, I can tell you that it doesn't allow individual driveways out to Whippany or Park.
The ordinance?
Correct.
Okay, and it doesn't allow a loop road?
It does not specify a loop road or any other internal road. It allows internal roads, but the design is something that would be dealt with at site plan. There's nothing in the ordinance that says you can or cannot.
Okay, so my question is, what reassurances do you have that when the planning board doesn't like something, if he comes up with a plan that has a loop road plus 25 houses and it conforms with everything in the ordinance, what leverage does the planning board then have to tell him, no, he can't do that?
The only difference between the planning board and the developer when they get into a situation that this is called Superior Court, but we enter into a developer's agreement. You heard some earlier comments earlier on by one of our neighbors commenting that this builder may not have built, and again, I'm paraphrasing this builder, but, may not be building to specification or to the zone that we approve. If that's the case, that's a whole other matter here that we should be looking at. I will tell you that right now. And I've been up on that site, as Joe knows, many days I've been up on that site. And I don't think this board is done with that site yet. But to answer your question, if he gets a resolution of approval from the planning board, and then he gets his developer's agreement, and he doesn't comply with it for some reason, he doesn't get his building permit, right? That's not.
No, that's too far along in the process. I'm talking about if the developer comes before the planning board with a site plan that has a loop road.
And we don't approve it?
But it doesn't say anything in the ordinance that you can have that loop road, and you don't approve it. It's not in the ordinance that he can't have the loop road. It's not in the ordinance that he can't have 25 houses. What leverage do you have to get him to do that? Or can he just say, I'm building it, I'm building the loop road, I can get the maximum houses and take, if you turn me down, I'm taking it to court, because that's what the ordinance says I can have.
That's where it would, if he wishes to challenge the outcome of a planning board decision, he goes to court. And whether or not he succeeds in court is a whole other matter. Is it worth, you're in an area.
Well, no, it's, okay. Fred, you understand?
You're in a what-if area here, and I can't answer you on that. Counsel?
Yeah.
He'd rather not.
If you had to defend this in Superior Court, where would you be?
It's up to the jurisdiction of the planning board, and as the mayor said, if somebody opposes that resolution, if the developer doesn't like those conditions. they'd have to file in Superior Court.
So as two members of the planning board, John Faramasco and Mayor Francioli, you would,
You
in your
can't,
site plan,
but you see, you have to be careful.
okay.
You
so
know, because if
as
you
members of the
ask
township
them-
committee, as members of the township committee, you prefer to see on that site exactly what you've said you would like tonight.
I stand by that.
We had a concept.
I stand by that.
We had a
Thank you.
concept presentation come into the planning board. I don't know how many people in the room were able to be here for that. The planning board made it very clear that an exterior loop road is not gonna fly.
Okay.
Not gonna fly. The planning board made it very clear, and so they're going back to the drawing board and trying to figure out what they can do. The property is a challenge, and the reason why this property is a challenge, it's not a square, it's not a rectangle, it's a triangle. And as a result of it being a triangular-shaped lot, it places huge challenges to it. So I would submit that there's going to be significant benefit in terms of the front of that triangle, which goes to the corner of Whippany and Park, that the township will have something which it can be proud of seeing there.
Right after this?
And I think the planning board process is such in place to allow us to voice our perspective, but it would be wrong for us to prejudge votes as to how somebody
Correct.
would vote. I can share with you, though, what took place, because that was in a public meeting, as to what we said in concept.
Okay, thank you very much.
The floor is still open. I'm going to hold the floor open for another moment, and then the board would like a short recess for all of us. So, Bob, go ahead. I'm going to give you number 2, Bob, but go ahead.
If the people are concerned about their property values with the R10, if it's built the way Windermere was built, Windermere down the street, it's an R10. I never cared for it. It's beautiful the way it is. And they built 7 houses next to it that went for $700,000 and nobody batted an eyelash. So if it's done the way Windermere is done, it'll be attractive and nobody will complain about it.
That's R10, not R10A.
It's R10. The side yard's exactly the same, 8 feet.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please. All right, I'm going to accept one more speaker, and then I'm going to call for recess. This gentleman.
Hi, my name is Joe Feachy. I live at 18 Knollwood Road, Whippany. Has anybody ever contacted the owner of 299 Whippany Road before he builds homes there, and maybe he would want to be interested in purchasing this property and continue building right across?
Well, the township isn't going to market property, so we're not going to contact.
Well, I'm just to try thinking
I
maybe
understand.
that would be a resolution here. I mean, to keep it all uniformed, all nice homes.
Well, the property, the only thing I can comment on is the property's been openly up for sale for some time now.
Yeah.
So if he were going to come forward, I'm certain, I'm going to assume he's aware that the property is on the market.
Mm-hmm. All right,
That's an assumption.
Yeah, I don't, maybe.
I know.
I'd like
All
to
right.
make a motion that we go into executive session.
Well, we want to recess for.
No, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session.
So moved. Yeah, be for the purposes of attorney-client privilege,
All
just
right,
to
do
go
we-
over the legal
Do we close
issues.
the public hearing or not?
Yeah, first you want to close the public hearing.
Motion to close
All
the
right.
public hearing.
Second?
Have a motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've closed this portion. The vote is for the council to go into executive session. We will be a few moments, and then we'll be back in session out here. Please bear with us. Use this as an opportunity to take a break,
Do we
okay?
have a motion to recess?
So
We'll
moved.
move to executive session for the
Motion to move
purposes
to executive
of
session.
discussing the legal issues relating to tonight's hearing.
Okay.
For the record. Not yet. Okay, may we have a motion to reconvene this township committee meeting?
Second.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Capola, seconded by Mr. Faramasco. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the township committee meeting of March 26th is now back in session. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I am going to read into the record excerpts of a resolution, the most pertinent portions of the resolution as to the reasons why the township committee believes it should adopt ordinance number 8-15. This resolution is a resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, setting forth the reasons why it should adopt Land Use Ordinance Number 8-15, notwithstanding the Planning Board's opinion that Ordinance Number 8-15 is partially inconsistent with the Township's master plan. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, County of Morris, that it gives the following reasons for adopting Ordinance Number 8-15, notwithstanding the partial inconsistency of the ordinance with the land use element of the master plan. 1. The residential development permitted in Ordinance 8-15 would address the needs of households that desire to live in single-family detached housing, but do not want the burdens of owning and maintaining their own lot. 2. Although the density of the R10A zone is higher than permitted in the existing R15 zone, such density is considered appropriate for the development scheme permitted. In addition, the zone regulations compensate for the higher density by imposing additional requirements upon development in the R10A zone that do not apply in the existing R15 zone. These include the following. A requirement for development as a single lot for the entire development in order to encourage coordinated building and landscaping design, shared use of common areas, and uniform maintenance. B, access restrictions that prohibit individual driveways for each dwelling on Park Avenue and Whippany Road. C, a maximum of 4 bedrooms per dwelling. D, increased setbacks from Park Avenue and Whippany Road. E, minimum buffer and fencing requirements. And F, a prohibition of pools, detached structures, outdoor play equipment, and storage of boats, trailers, campers, etc. 3. The residential development permitted in Ordinance 8-15 would promote improved traffic flow and safety compared to conventional single-family detached housing on individual lots. The property in the district is located at the intersection of Park Avenue and Whippany Road, 2 highly traveled roadways. The residential development permitted in the R10A zone would provide coordinated access via 1 or 2 shared driveway openings on these streets, unlike conventional single-family detached housing, which would likely have numerous individual driveway openings on these streets and be more disruptive of traffic flow. Be it further resolved that the Township Committee directs that the minutes of this meeting include the above reasons for proceeding with the adoption of this ordinance. Now, therefore, the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover and the County of Morrison, State of New Jersey resolves that ordinance number 8-15, entitled an ordinance of the Township Committee, an ordinance of the Township of the Committee of the Township of Hanover, it's a little wordy, amending and supplementing Chapter 166 of the Code of the Township entitled Land Use and Development Legislation by changing the zone classification of Block 4701, Lot 29 on the tax map, and also known as 325 Whippany Road, from the R15 Zone District to the R10A Zone District, and by amending the development standards in R10A Zone District, be passed on final reading, and that a notice of the final passage be published in the April 2nd issue of the Morris County Daily Record. May we have a motion for approval?
I move that we approve it predicated on the stipulations as noted in that ordinance 8-15.
So a motion by Mr. Capola.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Bruno. And roll call for approval. Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Ferramosca.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Franciola.
Aye.
Now, on adoption of the ordinance. Be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, amending and supplementing Chapter 166 of the Code of the Township, entitled Land Use and Development Legislation, by changing the zone classification of Block 4701, Lot 29, as set forth on the tax map, and also known as 325 Whippany Road, from the R15 Zone District to the R10A Zone District, and by amending the development standards in the R10A Zone District, be read by title on second reading, and that it be adopted at this time. May we now have a motion for adoption?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Capola, seconded by Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Bruno. On roll call for adoption, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And there is a supermajority for approval of this ordinance.
Okay, any other comment from the Township Committee at this time? Hearing none. Motion to reopen to the public at this time?
So moved.
Moved and seconded?
No, we still have ordinances to do, Ron.
Oh, no, all right, I apologize. The administrator still has ordinances which you'd like to do before we open. All right, Joe, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Okay, as we continue with the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, we have public hearing on several other ordinances that we're going to do as a consent agenda. Ordinance number 9-15, amending and supplementing section 82-3 entitled Hours under chapter 82 of the Code of the Township, entitled Alcoholic Beverages, with the inclusion of new hours for the sale, service, or delivery of any alcoholic beverages on licensed premises by the holders of plenary retail distribution licenses pursuant to a new section 82-3B. Ordinance number 10-15, amending and supplementing ordinance number 23-14 and chapter 61 of the Code of the Township, entitled Salaries and Compensation, Personnel Policies, which chapter establishes regulations and rates of compensation for the officers and full-time and part-time civilian, non-union employees of the Township, and ordinance number 11-15, establishing the salaries of the full-time, blue-collar employees of the Public Works, Buildings and Grounds, and Park Maintenance Department, represented by IBT Local Number 97 of New Jersey for calendar year 2015. Are there any persons in chamber wishing to comment on ordinances 9-15, 10-15, or 11-15? If so, please step forward and give your name and full address for the record.
Hi, Judy Irati, 43 Locust, Hanover Township, Locust Drive, Hanover Township. On the 9-15, I sent an email today. Did everybody have a chance to see that?
I didn't see it, Judy.
Oh, sorry about that. There's one thing in the ordinance about the hours of operation for selling, not consuming, but selling alcoholic beverages, and that would be Saturday evening between the hours of 2 o'clock and Sunday afternoon to 1 p.m. You would be restricted from selling.
Let's double check this.
On Sundays between...
Saturday night
between 10 p.m. to Sunday at 1 p.m. That's
Okay,
correct.
yeah, so, you know, in thinking about this now that the ShopRite does have alcoholic beverages for sale, this is not consumption, but for sale.
Correct.
You know, if I were to go there in the morning at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning to do my regular shopping and I want to buy a bottle of wine for my dinner at 2 o'clock, I would not be able to buy the bottle of wine until after 1 o'clock.
Correct. And the reason for that, Judy, there was a concern by a citizen, we don't know who it is, that came forward to another attorney that made representations here at the Township Committee meeting several weeks ago, that perhaps there was an allegation that perhaps alcoholic beverages were being sold at a time when they should not be sold. And as a result of that, the Township Committee felt it would be better to be more specific about what they call spirituous liquors, wines and beer, which are packaged goods. And that's why the ordinance is very specific for the times in which alcohol can be sold.
Okay, but all the other days of the week and buy beverages at what time?
Well, for example, on Monday, you can't purchase between 10 p.m. the night before until 9 a.m. the following morning.
So every other day it's 9 a.m., but on Sunday it's 1 p.m.? Is there a reason for that?
As soon as you get out of church, you can
Judy, that was always the feeling of the Township Committee that
Well, I can see that for consumption of alcohol.
grab a vodka and tonic right after you get out of mass.
That happens
I
to
can
be
run to the
true.
shop,
That-
right?
The Township Committee's philosophy has always been that for the last 30 years, not before church hours.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other comments from members of the public?
Motion to close this part.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinances 9, 10, and 11. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now on adoption for ordinances 9-15, on roll call, Committeeman Gallagher.
Aye.
Committeeman Faramaska.
Aye.
Committeeman Bruno.
Aye.
Committeeman Capola.
Aye.
And Mayor Franciola.
Aye.
Did you sign those, right?
Oh, did we?
Yeah, these were. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. And now, ladies and gentlemen, on the resolutions as a consent agenda, are there any comments from the Township Committee on any of the resolutions? There's a
Second.
motion by Mr. Capola, seconded by Mr. Bruno on roll call. Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Franciola.
Aye.
Raffle applications, 2829, 2830, 2831, and 2832.
Move they be approved.
We have a motion by Mr. Capola.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gallagher. All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Mr. Chairman, members of the Township Committee, that clears the agenda of the Business Administrative Township Clerk.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Any other comment from the Township Committee at this time?
On a couple items, just quickly, the calendar says spring, but the weather certainly doesn't. However, opening day for Little League is scheduled for April 18th, right across the street at Veterans Field. June 1st, the senior golf outing is being resurrected. After a 5-year absence, we're really happy to have that back. The golf course is in Newton, although I can't recall the name. I'll have that for the next meeting. But please see Tom Quirk in the Recreation Department if you're interested in registering for the senior golf outing. And we'll be having a bus trip to Yankee Stadium on June 20th. It's going to be Old Timers Day. They're doing it a little differently this year. Old Timers Day is on a Saturday. So it'll be a full day of Yankee baseball. And it sounds like Derek Jeter might be making his first appearance as an old timer. So the tickets will probably go quickly. Again, June 20th, and the bus will leave at 3 o'clock. We talk about the fireworks again. Yes, July 1st on the fireworks. We'll have more on that as we get closer.
What was Little League opening day again?
April 18th.
April the 18th, okay.
Right across the street.
All right.
And if you
George?
want to see 900 hot dogs go,
Oh,
in about
man.
5 minutes,
Oh,
stop down.
man. I'll
That's
tell you,
all.
Little
All right.
League, okay.
no matter.
All right, any other comments? No, Tom? John?
From a planning standpoint, the planning board will be tackling Route 10 corridor. So that'll begin in April, where we'll be evaluating each block, each lot, trying to come up with an overall vision for the future development of Route 10. That concludes.
Okay. I'd like to thank the governor's office and the governor for a wonderful opportunity for Hanover this past Tuesday when Governor Chris Christie joined us for his town hall meeting. And I want to thank our staff. I have to tell you something. This was probably a premier session, over 350 seats. We had to borrow seating from both our fire companies. We had standing room only. Many who were here were there. Did a great job, but more so, our Department of Public Works, our administration, our fire companies, our police department, our recreation, American Legion was there. all of our organizations and all of our interdepartments came together and made it a successful day for this meeting, and it went off very well. And it was, as I said, I want to thank them. It was a good day for Hanover Township, so on that. Motion to open to the public?
So
Oh,
moved.
sorry.
Ron, I just wanted to go one more comment. I'd also like to thank Joe Giorgio, Krista, and Mayor Francioli for all the work putting this, Christie's Town Hall meeting together. I know you were all over it, Ron, so we appreciate that too very much, so didn't want to leave you out of it, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Very
and
good.
before we open, I want to acknowledge Brian Ferran and Tom Gallagher for the wonderful work that's going on right now in terms of potholes. In order to appreciate what's going on in terms of pothole repair, leave this area of Hanover Township. Drive around a little bit. I crossed over that river in New York and was on one of their major highways, and the traffic was snarled due to potholes. Pothole traffic jams. It was incredible on the Grand Central Parkway going to LaGuardia Airport. And I can really appreciate the work that's being done here as a result of it. And I know there's issues with some spots in the roads, but they're really doing a fine job doing the repairs.
Yeah. I think it's important that, our neighbors are patient with us. They know we're trying to get everything done. We've got numerous streets, we know them. Some of the potholes we can repair, others are gonna require major street work. You're gonna have to open up some areas, I know, that we can't repair. We're gonna have to have outside contractors come in. It's been a terrible winter, and the frost is doing its damage. So, just be vigilant, be careful where you're driving. We try to get them all, but, and if you know of one, don't call me, call Tom. Let him know where they are, and he'll see that they get patched up. So
I think you guys know my phone number.
Yeah. Motion to open the floor once again.
moved.
Okay, moved and approved, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Would you like to address the Township Committee at this time?
Move we
You
close.
can do so from the podium, giving us your name and address for the record.
Move we close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion for adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Good job, Mr. Mayor.
Use your stamp on these resolutions. That'd be better.
Is that many?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Use your stamp.
You all right?
The only thing that I need those on the resolution.
Oh, give me that.
But I'll use the stamp.
Mr. Byrne, how are you? Thanks for coming out tonight. Good.